Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hello, Barb. Hello, Aaron. Hey, folks,
Oh,
this is Silverline, and this is Wednesday Wham. We got a small crew tonight. I think we got a few folks still waiting to join us, but we are here to talk comic books and pop culture. I'm your humble guest host tonight, and as usual, when I fill in for the venerable Dean Zachary, we have some issues and things go awry, and hopefully those problems aren't keeping others from joining us. But thank you, everybody out there in internet land, for joining us tonight. We are going to be talking about the independent comic industry, good, bad, ugly, what works, what doesn't, and get our thoughts on it from our small panel of experts tonight. And then we'll talk about anything else that tickles us as the night progresses. As always, thank you to Daytona Beach Comic Convention. And I keep feeling like that's really far away, but that's August and September, right? 2 months away. And there's a huge bunch of Silverliners that are going to be down there the 11th and 12th, right? 10th and 11th and 12th of September. I should have that.
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Because I have a Rose City one that's like the 20th, 19th, and 20th, and
Okay.
I remember like the other one is like just a few weeks before, so I think that sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's going to be a huge crowd of people. So if you can be anywhere near, if you're going to be anywhere near Daytona Beach in September, come see us. It's going to be awesome. And coming up very soon in the Silverline news, more Silverline news is our next Kickstarter campaign. So if you don't get our emails, you need to go to silverlinecomics.com and that little pop-up, right? Is there still a pop-up? Either way, get on our newsletter. You'll find out how to do that, and you'll get notifications about what's coming up. And we have another Kickstarter campaign coming soon. So if you want to get those titles, we want to be the first to get exclusive content and support the next batch of books coming from Silverline. Make sure you do that. All right. Have I forgotten anything, Barb?
Nope, you're doing pretty good so far.
Okay, good. Well, my name is Scott Wakefield. I am the writer, co-creator of Steam Patriots. We've got Aaron Humphreys, who does lots and lots of cool things, and Barb Kilbeck.
Not really.
Okay, a few cool things.
A few cool things.
Of like, okay, moderately interesting. Not so.
I just make a lot of crap.
And Barb, who has inked wondrous and amazing titles for a long time, and Rory is waiting somewhere out there in Ohio. I'm going to send him a link, so I'm going to babble here a little bit like this while I scroll to get that link, and then compose an email, because Mr. Rory Boyle is opposed to social media, and he is not on Facebook, so he doesn't get all the group messages that we send him. And I'm clicking this makes for great entertainment, doesn't it? I'm going to copy that link, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go do this and send this link to Rory. I have to put it in an envelope, fold the envelope, and hand it off to the post office, and that link's not going to work. Rory, if you're watching, you're going to have to wait here just a second. I'll wait till one of the other folks takes over the conversation. We can jump right in. The comic book industry ebbs and flows. The big guys and the little guys all have their highs and lows with individual titles. And I have not been in the industry long enough to have firsthand knowledge of the highs and lows of comic books. But hopefully folks out there are familiar with the good and the bad of what has come from the big two and from the independent world. We are firmly, of course, an independent comic book here, and we love that. But it is tough to get above the noise, to get in front of, to jump in front of a Marvel or DC, in between them and their consumer, right? To get our faces in and say, hey, what about us over here?
Well, if you have pictures of you and your Speedo on the covers of the comic,
wait, just a second. Pictures or illustrations? Because I think Dean used me as a body double for that one back there.
For his superheroes, yeah.
Well, oddly enough, and this will give you a chance to send your email.
Okay.
Oddly enough, I was doing a little research today, and the subject matter said anybody except for DC and Marvel we could talk about. I don't know how large the companies are over in Japan, or if it's a lot of smaller companies. So I'm going to throw them in here too. But I did a little research on the top best-selling comics of all time, and Marvel and DC aren't even close. Of the 20 comics, 2 of them were American, and that's Peanuts and Garfield. There's 2 or 3 Belgium ones, 1 Italian one, and all the rest of them were Japanese. And the lowest one was 120 million, was number 20. And number 1 has sold 500 million pieces. Now that's an astonishing number. That's One Piece. Have you heard of that one, Aaron? That one has sold 500 million ish books.
Yeah, they're making Netflix is making a live action movie of it right now.
And that is of what era? I'm gonna look this one up. Oh, it's manga.
Manga. One Piece, I think, came out
97.
Yeah, it's like a pirate comic.
Okay.
So, I think that it's in a fictional world. This guy Luffy wants to be the greatest pirate, and he eats some sort of fruit. There's like fruit that they eat that gives him powers he can stretch.
But just the thought of one book selling 500 million copies just blows my mind.
Well, it's very, and of course they have a different. So the way they do comics, like in Japan, is a little different. They don't have companies like Marvel, DC. It's a different business structure. Most people, mangakas is what I think they're called. Manga artists, usually independent. They go through serial magazines. So Shonen Jump and other magazines are these magazines that collect installments of manga episodes, and then once they collect enough installments, they put them in the books, which kind of like Americans do with floppies.
Mm-hmm.
Except we do floppies to put in the graphic novels. They put them in these huge magazines. They look like phone books, and people all over business, like businessmen and stuff, will read them and stuff. Yeah.
So it's a bunch of these little independent creators, and they submit it to
these basically magazine companies. They're not comic book companies like we do, like we're Marvel and stuff will publish like, independent floppy like things. They'll publish a serial, and then they have these magazines that serialize these individual comics, and the magazines would be geared, like Shonen Jump is geared towards young boys, the Shoujo comics geared towards girls, and they have like manga magazine or serials that do like sports, romance, whatever. And then so if you make a manga comic, you would submit it to them. A lot of times they have contests. These companies, I don't know if the contests are held by the companies, like these certain contests, and whoever wins the contest gets to be published in that. Like even Akira was published in a serial. And they look like phone books. They actually published Shonen Jump in America physical for about a year or two. It didn't take off. Nobody figured out kind of what it was. But yeah, you can look them up online, and that's the way Japan's been doing it for years. So there's not a lot of collectability. The idea of collectability in Japan doesn't really exist. A lot of the serial phone books, people read them and then they just toss them. So they're put on very cheap paper. Once they're done reading, they just throw them in the trash. So yeah, there's not the collectability we have here with our stuff.
So do the independent creators, do they make any money off of this?
Oh yeah. Depending on the those magazines circulate, tons and tons, and I think that the magazine companies will pay them. And then a lot of times, if it's popular enough, they make anime. Often anime is a huge seller of manga. Those two go hand in hand, and that's kind of manga's secret in a weird way. That European and American comics quite haven't figured out is the anime is a huge advertisement for the comic and vice versa, because a lot of the animes are usually behind in the manga. And so if you like the anime and you want to know what happened, you got to go read the manga, because they're like 6-7 volumes ahead, Rory, something like that. Yeah.
The two right below this one
sometimes years ahead.
Yeah, usually years ahead. Yeah.
Asterix, which is a French Belgian comic, sold 370 million.
Oh yeah.
Schultz's Peanuts also sold 370 million.
Oh yeah.
So I can understand like Garfield and Peanuts because that's like I mean that's
Very, yeah.
kids,
That's
it's
mainstream.
cross, it appeals to
Staple.
everybody,
Mhm.
and
Right.
it's not hard to sell that, you know,
Mhm.
it does, you don't have to explain it now.
Yeah, it's in bookstores.
Right.
Mhm.
Right, it's
Right.
everywhere. It's ubiquitous. So I mean, like manga too. So I'm wondering, what is it culturally? Is the difference between, say, Japan and the consuming manga so voraciously, and us? Why has if the industry, if there was a need for that industry, we'd have it, right? We would be doing it. So why?
Oh, the man
why
himself.
Oh yeah, Roland man.
Hey,
Hey, so
Roland.
yeah. Oh, hi Rory. Hi Roland.
Hello.
I haven't said hello to you
Yeah.
guys.
I have a few guesses on that.
Yes, go for it.
One, I do think for some odd reason, America's had this weird stigma about comics. Like
Mhm.
comics are more closely, and I think that's to do with
Yeah.
like you read kids' books, you read comic books, you read books. Japan and a lot of the countries don't have that. They just see it another form as a medium. Like comic books is like movies or books or whatever. It's just another way of telling a story, and they don't care. So there's no stigmatization. You ask a lot of adult Americans, would you be on the like? We have the subway here, which is like called the Max Rail here in Portland. Would you be on the Max reading a comic? A lot of them are like, oh no, because I'd be seen as a nerd. My boss even said that.
Hmm.
He was into Star Wars and stuff, and I'm like, oh, you ever get any models? With? Oh, that's too nerdy for me. That stigma doesn't exist in other countries. And I think it's something that's really held back the American comic art form because there's
Could it also be to do with just the nature of their language? They're very pictographic. Language is forever anyway, so they're already used to that mental idea. It's already there.
And where do you think the stigma started?
Yeah, and how have we not gotten over it in 100 years?
Strange enough, I think.
Oh, you silly people! You should know this as comic book creators.
Well, we're asking questions to start
We're
dialogue.
being rhetorical here so that our audience.
Well, the audience to give us some feedback.
There's a few. I think one. I know majority, but I still think some of it kind of started with Walt Disney to a degree.
Because it was marketed towards kids.
Yeah, and so people
Well,
billing it as a family
Yeah.
friendly. So comics should be family friendly, and of course that went into the whole EC debacle and the subversion of the juvenile, creating of juvenile delinquents and all
Seduction
that.
of the innocent.
Seduction of the innocent. Yeah, that was the book. Yeah, and I think that is all tied up. And the thing that's sad is American comics kind of did it to themselves. I mean, we did the Comics Code Authority to basically make amends. Oh, we won't be bad or whatever. And we kind of hamstrung ourselves for decades and reinforced that comics are for kids. So when we finally lost, the Comics Code Authority, it was almost like too late. We'd already cemented that comics are for kids sort of thing. And unfortunately, it's kind of stuck. Even though we've dropped the Comics Code Authority, could do whatever we want in comics, mentally, that's still in people's thoughts. So it's kind of backfired.
Roland?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of rightness there, but it all goes back to seduction of the innocent.
Mm-hmm.
And comics were never intended for kids. They weren't created as for being for kids. Even after the Comics Code came along, they weren't really for kids. If you ever listen to Stan Lee talking at the height of the Comics Code, he will tell you his audience was college students. He was writing for college students. Now, when you're old, like some people, I won't call names, college students are kids, but that's not what we're talking about, right? They're adults. So yeah, because Frederick Wertham, I think people don't understand the damage that Frederick Wertham did to the comic book industry. He effectively, his ideas effectively killed EC Comics, as Aaron's already mentioned. Created the Comics Code. Now, the code changed multiple times over the year, but the thing you have to remember, the Comics Code was not about so much about making it for kids. The Comics Code was all about distribution, because the distribution models were threatened because of Frederick Wertham saying, "Hey, this stuff rots the brain." So the distributors began to say, and we're not talking about Diamond and Capital, and we're talking about newsstand distribution, right? And so they were threatened by, of course, parents and local communities. Like, hey, we don't want that stuff. So the comics code was created to say, hey, if it's got this code on it, right? I've got one right here. If it's got this code on it, right, then it's okay. We've had a council to look at it, and it's okay to be distributed. And so,
what did that start?
That started in 1950 something.
50s, yeah. It's been around for decades.
We have Google.
And it's basically.
I can tell you when it ended.
Like a movie rating.
Yeah.
It ended in.
It is basically the same thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's
54.
Oh, go ahead, Roland.
Okay, there you go. Well, I was going to say for folks who are old enough to remember in the 1980s and early 90s, music experienced something very similar.
Right,
a lot of people remember Tipper Gore, who is Al Gore's Vice President Al Gore's wife.
Just as self-righteous as William.
She led the campaign for I may get this wrong, but I think it's PMRC, which stands for Parents Music Resource Council, I think.
There's something
Sounds
like
right.
that.
Yep, and they're the ones who led the labeling for compact discs, for CDs, right, for music.
Yeah.
I love that explicit tag.
Yeah, it contains explicit lyrics, right? So it's a very similar thing that happened to music then that happened to comics in the 1950s.
And it's weird. Oh, go ahead. It's weird.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's that period after that is when Americans began to view it, because of the labels, right? Began to view it as, oh, well, this is supposed to be for kids because, see, it's got this label on there that says that it's okay. And I can remember, Barb probably remembers this too. My grandmother used to read comics. She had, matter of fact, I got my first, some of my oldest comics that I had in my collection. I had a Marvel Tales #2. It's collected. It was a reprint of Avengers #1, Hulk #1, something else. There was like 4 books in there. That was my grandmother's, right? And we're talking something from the 1960s. My grandmother wasn't a kid in the 1960s, right?
And now you could say theoretically that the comics code is still in effect, but it's corporate policy.
Yeah,
that
corporate policy, and it's so. I mean, this is, I think, a generational thing. My mom, I remember when I showed my mom, because I'm a huge X-Men fan. When the first X-Men film came out, she watched the movie with me because she didn't read comics. It was the only way to see it, and she's like, "Really, you're reading stuff this sophisticated?" I'm like, "You had no idea what I read." There were so many books I read as a kid, comics I read. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, they're for kids or whatever." And some of my stuff had nudity, violence. Didn't know at all, and just assume it's all safe.
And I think that the independent scene right now is what we really need, because I think DC and Marvel have their own metaphorical comics code, because they have their
parent
corporate
companies.
board that they have.
Especially Disney. Disney's going, kind of hammer down a little bit on that, and strangely enough, DC. I always think it's funny when DC people always complain, like, especially DC movies are too dark, and DC should be bright and happy and optimistic. I'm like, have you read DC comics in the years? I mean, they'll like slaughter each other. I mean, it's like blood, gore, and death. I mean, there's some intense stuff happening in those comics. I'm like, you can tell when someone like, oh, Superman's supposed to be like a Boy Scout, and I'm like, you haven't read comics in the last few years. He's done some intense stuff. So yeah, I always thought that was kind of funny. I think
I heard the stuff that y'all were saying earlier. I was listening. I was putting final touches on a couple of different things. So and the funny thing about it is, we see these people talking about, oh, the industry's healthy, right? This is something that's kind of going around on social media recently. And the truth of the matter is, and I think Barb's already said it, is that Marvel and DC are selling at all-time historical lows. Yeah. And so one of the things we always question, or at least I think people question, is like, okay, if this is the case, how is the industry healthy? Well, then you mentioned One Piece. It's because it's not Marvel and DC that are selling. It's other things that are selling. Yes. Independents are doing really well. I mean, you guys just look at the strong independents that come, in the traditional distribution models, right? Boom, IDW,
Aftershock.
Yeah, Aftershock. Those guys
Some of
are
some
doing
of the
well.
some of the most popular TV and movies are coming from the independent books. They're picking the companies. Hollywood is out there picking through the independents more than I think that they're picking through DC and Marvel, because they realize that DC.
Well, yeah, they
They
can't.
can't look at DC and Marvel now.
Yeah,
Right. I mean, look, Dark Horse, the Umbrella Academy is Dark Horse. A Dark Horse to me is the number one go-to for TV and movies for a lot of people. Hellboy, Lock and Key.
Yeah. Well, they did that almost. I mean, Marvel and
Walking
DC.
Dead.
But, yeah.
Resident Alien is is Dark Horse.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, they did movies. I mean, there was an old movie called Virus with I can't remember Tommy Lee. Anyway, the Scream Queen from Halloween. I can't remember her name. Jamie Lee Curtis. She was in it. That was a Dark Horse comic.
Tommy Lee Jones, Jamie Lee Curtis.
I know it's three names.
Names with a Lee in the middle.
The thing I'm saying is that I think Hollywood realizes that the independents are fresher and have more unusual ideas than the tried and true superhero format.
And they kind of line up a little more with the manga, because manga does have kind of weird, crazy ideas, and independents line up more with that. So, I mean, My Hero Academia did their manga version of superhero comics, and just sales-wise crushes Marvel, DC. So, again, it reminds me of the old cars, Japan came over and destroyed, it did well in our car industry, but same sort of thing, right?
And you said that was a manga superheroes. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the U.S., it's really, really tough to get. It's especially tough to get attention for any superhero. It's tough to supplant the big guy's superhero. Am I wrong? I mean, because you don't see superhero stuff getting picked up either.
The only one
except
that
for the boys.
You see it get rehashed. That's all.
But they make it really different. They have to put a big spin on it to make it unique.
Well, how many times have you heard somebody say, "Oh, that looks interesting. That looks like a Superman ripoff,"
right?
Yeah.
Or that looks really cool. That must be like a Batman ripoff,
right? Right.
Okay.
The only one I've seen that come close to the popularity that's independent would be Invincible. Invincible is really popular. Now, I don't know how popular he is anymore. I mean, I had the TV show, whatever, but as far as straight superhero, and I don't know Robert Kirkman's magic touch. He does have this weird sort of magic touch. He did The Walking Dead, and then he did Invincible, and now he's got other stuff. But Invincible was the one I remember going the longest, and money. But I remember that going the longest, and I'm honestly trying to think of independent superhero.
The Boys.
But
that was the way out there. Holy cow!
Yeah. But that was Garth Ennis.
Garth
Ennis always. People are fans.
Plenty of superheroes, independent superheroes that have been done. I mean, look at Raising Dion on.
Oh no, I was thinking somebody had the sales numbers of Invincible, like that sort of. I know there's tons, but
The Crow.
The Crow. Crow did really well. I mean, you could argue The Mask was superhero.
No, that was really
Yeah.
Sin City was kind of like a knockoff of The Spirit, as far as I was concerned, anyway.
The Sin City comics, I mean the comics of the movie.
The Shadow. There you go.
The Shadow.
Yeah.
I remember that was another comic I read as a kid. My mom, like, hey, there's a comic called Sin City. Mom, sure, let him buy it. That's no problem, right? So it's like, and Frank Miller doesn't hide the fact, like, what's this about? Sex, boobs, and guns. I mean, there's no hiding that fact. So she didn't. My mom was, I guess, kind of progressive in that way. But Sin City, because that was Legend imprint came out. That was John Byrne's Next Men, Mike Mignola's Hellboy, and that was Sin City. That was Dark Horses, and that's when I got into them.
Yeah.
So I want to, if you guys will allow me, I want to back up a little bit, because Aaron said something about Japanese. The way that it's consumed in Japan, how it's just it's disposable. They'll read it and dispose of it. At one time, American comics were that way.
Yes, they were.
At one time, American comics were printed and created as a disposable medium. They weren't intended to be collectibles, and of course, they became collectibles collectible over the years because people began to realize, hey, everybody threw those old comic books out. Those are hard to find now, right?
Yeah.
And
And
now
then
everyone's chasing that dragon.
And now everyone is trying to create collectibles, right?
Yep.
And
Right.
we don't do that anymore. But comics were initially. I mean, think about it. You look at them; they were 5 cents. They were 10 cents.
Mhm.
They were not meant to be, some highfalutin, literature. They were disposable entertainment.
They were supposed to be. That's the one thing I always
cheap
got.
newsprint.
Yeah, that's the thing in the '90s when they had the speculative market didn't realize is, well, these comics are going to be valuable. It's like, well, no, the old comics are valuable because everybody's mother and grandmother threw them away.
Right.
They
roll
They're
them up
not
and
throwing
put them in
these
their back
away, so there's
pocket,
tons
and
of them.
Yeah.
Right. So it didn't go in. It is funny that I think there is a collectibility. I mean, we were talking, I can't remember who I was talking about comic conventions. That's how comic conventions started. There were flea market sales, and there were chances for people to find those missing issues in those serialized sequential things. And then over the years, they invited artists or whatever. But they're really flea because, I mean, before comic shops, where did you go to find back issues?
Well, yeah.
So yeah,
You went to used bookstores.
Used bookstores or
Mm.
a Comic Con. Some of people brought their
Garage
collections
sales.
and traded.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Garage sales. Yeah.
Garage sales.
Yeah. I remember the first time I ever saw back issues, and if you guys have heard me tell the story before, it was my friend Barry Gregory, who is Tommy's partner with Kablam. When I was in like 7th grade, probably, I would go to Barry's house after school. My dad would stop by and pick me up, and because Barry and I had comic books, that was our shared passion, right? And so I would go to his house and hang out for the afternoon until my dad got off from work. But one afternoon, Barry said, "Hey, let's walk to the bookstore." I'm like, "Okay, cool, right?" So from his house, I don't know how far it was. It was in the neighborhood. We walked to a little sidewalk mall, and we walked in, and there was about 6 boxes of comic books, old. And I'm like, I've never seen this before. Look, here's old Avengers that I didn't have that, I had started buying. And then there were like 6 issues. I bought them all. I spent every dollar I had in my wallet, which wasn't very much. But I walked away with
both
like
dollars.
Both dollars. I walked away with like 6 Avengers back issues that day.
Yeah.
And I'd never ever seen that before, and that kind of blew my mind and opened my mind up to, okay, you can get these without ordering through the classified ads, right?
Right.
And the rest is history right behind you.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that collectability also kind of started
in
with
fact,
like
the ones that I bought are in that box right there. I can tell you where they are.
Well, I mean, the collectability of things, I remember started when they did like sports cards. I think the original sports cards were like cigar cases or something. Like there were these little cards. And then people started, they were supposed to be just like a little like, hey, you got a little picture of it.
Yeah.
But people started collecting them. And then that, and I see comic books as kind of a little bit of like cards, like collecting sets of cards. Like Roland said when he found the back, it's just like, I can collect sets of these. And then that just blew, opens your mind up like, oh, great. So, and then the hunt's on. And that's half the fun.
Yeah.
I do sometimes think ordering comics online, being able to get comics online even through kind of takes away a little bit of the hunt, because that is half the fun.
Just look it up. There it is.
I know.
That's what you used to get excited for a comic convention. You would make, okay, I need this issue and this issue, and you'd scour and hope you get lucky. Exactly.
So. Anyone who's been to a show with me has, particularly if there's time enough to get away, has seen me digging through the cheap boxes. I have no shame.
I quote, "You can't pass up the dollar box."
That's so true.
Well, there's so many random things in there. I remember finding all sorts of crazy things. I remember finding this little, it was called Albedo. And it was like these little mice that were like this military. I've never seen anything like it. And it was like, I'm like, and I was so hard. I never found any of the others. The artwork was kind of cool, but I was like, that was anthropomorphic, but it was like some Robotech. And I think it was something. And there were all sorts of just really, I think that's where I found Usagi Yojimbo. I was in a bookstore with new back ends and like Samurai Rabbit. Okay. I was in the Ninja Turtles and I was into that craze. And I remember getting Usagi Yojimbo and all that.
That's one of the longest running independents out there.
Yeah. I think he's I met Stan Sakai at a few he's such a sweet guy. A few conventions. I'm trying to think. I think that that's still going. I mean, there's been once,
Yeah.
but he's still going. That's
You
why
know-
every time I look at Usagi Ojima, like, just read whatever you want. There's so much of it, and there's usually separate stories of the Samurai Rabbit. So,
Do you know the magazine 2000 AD from the
oh yeah,
UK? They
Oh.
put out 2018 issues. Can you believe that?
I think it's
Wow.
still going, isn't it? Or
Yeah,
did they find,
it's still growing strong.
So let me toss a hypothetical to you guys, right? Kind of based on what Aaron said. So you know that historically, traditionally, anthologies have never sold that well in the U.S. Of course, we can always think of exceptions, right? There's this one has done well. Dark Horse Presents had some heyday, but if you look at
Right.
Dark Horse Presents, generally it's because they had aliens, right? And so
I think, yeah.
they did well because they had aliens. If someone were to get a wild hair and decide, hey, you know what? Let's do a big, thick comic book once a month that has, I don't know. I know Shonen Jump has how many pages of those things? Like 300.
They were like 300, but I think each. And I used to read the American version of Shonen Jump, which was made for America. But I think each installment was like basic comic, 24 pages or something.
Okay.
So it'd be basically putting like 24 pages. But again, like each, of course, Shonen Jump would continue with the next installment.
Right. So I'm pulling up a calculator here.
But I think together they were like 300. But I mean, it was a bunch of these installments.
So 300
because I mean,
divided by 24, you're looking at 12, right?
Yeah. 12.
So do you think that American audiences would have an interest if somebody said, hey, we're gonna publish this? I'm just call it American Jump because I can't think of it.
Yeah.
American Jump
Trademark
right
that.
now. Right? What's that? Trademark that. Yeah. Copyright trademark. Right? American Jump. And every month, right? Every month, we're going to have 12 different comic books in there. And they'll be, they don't even have to be continued series, right? They could be, but they have to be consecutive, right? You could have some one and dones. You could have a mini series. Okay, look, we're going to run, let's just say Cat and Mouse. Cat and Mouse in month 1, and in month 2, month 3, month 4, it's over, right?
Right.
Do you think? Do y'all think that there are American audiences would have any interest in anything like that?
I think they would, and I've thought about this myself many a time because I have thought anthologies don't sell well, but I think one of the things with anthologies, like, because I'm wondering, like, I've never been a big fan of anthologies, and so I've been thinking, why do I like Shonen Jump? Why do anthologies not interest me? Like, what is that difference for me personally? I think it has to do with maybe. I can't sink if I know the stories in the anthology are like little 6-page short stories. If you're not in the short stories, they don't really grab me. But like you said, if they're continuing, then that would be into it. The only magazine I know that has actually somewhat pulled this off is Heavy Metal. They're still doing it. Now that's bringing European
they've
comics.
Had struggles.
They've had struggles.
Also,
yeah.
2000 AD does that too.
That too. It's one of these things I think I would love to give it a shot of somebody just because I think it would be fun. Because I thought about even with Kickstarters, if somebody had a bunch of comics left and give a Kickstarter like a new serial magazine. Marvel, I think, didn't Marvel try this at one? There's a comic shop that has this whole, I just discovered this recently, that has this little back end section, a little table in the back end, but it sells magazine size. And we're selling old Conans or whatever. But I think some of them had like a sort of Marvel Presents where Marvel maybe had attempted this or something.
I don't remember
at one time. I think there was like Fantasy Illustrated stuff like that. Then that may have been more.
You're talking about Epic Illustrated.
Epic, maybe was that the one?
But it was just a magazine.
Just a magazine. Okay.
Yeah. I've got Epic probably in that box down there. I
think
it didn't last very long.
No.
It had some good stuff in it, but it was along the lines of a heavy metal.
My big drawback on that is I might be hooked on one story.
Right.
Yeah. And there's 12 stories in there, so I'm paying extra for my one story.
They would have to connect in some way genre-wise. Like Shonen Jump is for young boys, Shoujo. So the magazines, the series, are like kind of connect genre. Like you don't have horror, romance, westerns. I mean, it would be like the Western.
Epic
magazine.
Was all science fiction.
Science fiction, right?
Yeah. If
so
you did
there
a
would be
limited
something
run,
like that.
just 12 months of that.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good.
I think it would.
Indicator.
It would. I don't know if it would work. I almost think with the way manga is so popular, it might work because I know a lot of people read manga and know of that
It's
format.
becoming more and more popular in the
Yeah.
States.
I've often wondered myself how that would work and would that be successful? And I've often wondered in a
Well,
Kickstarter. If
So
a
the other
company
thing
did
is
that.
when you look at sales, floppies are as much as it pains me to say, floppies are slowly dying. I don't know that they'll ever go away, but they are certainly not what they were. That said, graphic novels, right,
Do well.
or trade papers, which is what
Right.
passes for graphic novels a lot of times, those are doing well. Which is for us, which is part of the reason that I was insistent on the model. Okay, no, we're going to do a miniseries so that we can raise the funds as we go, but
Right.
the end goal is always the trade,
Right.
because that's where we're going to have. I believe that's where we're going to have life, is in the trades.
I think strange enough, it's also an image perception. As weird as it is, graphic novels, the term, I think we've talked about
It's
this before
graphic
on here,
novel.
Roland, man, was the term graphic novel sounds more mature.
Oh yeah,
People more willing
yeah.
to read a graphic novel than a comic
Right.
book.
Right.
Anybody
Because
start-
yeah,
just
it's a
stupid
book.
name.
It's a book
Yeah, it's
with
a
a
book.
hardcover
Right.
and a spine.
I don't read comic books. Those are
I read-
children's
I
I read
know
graphic novels.
anybody in our,
Which
in
is
our
always funny
audience
because
have
I
an
always
opinion on this?
Oh yeah, I always thought it was funny on the news. People would always be like, this content may show graphic images, and then this graphic novel. I'm like, does that mean the content in the graphic novels? I don't know. It's just the way they use the word graphic.
Yeah.
It just always confused me.
I'd like some feedback from our audience if they want to kick in, whether they'd be interested in anthologies or not.
I think if it was like a serialized anthology, I think there's the one, because a lot of times, and do you get this way, Roland? I mean, does anyone else, like, once you see an anthology in American comics, you're just like, meh.
Well, yeah, for me, yeah. And I know that I see them on Kickstarter. So here's the frustrating thing, right? So I see them on Kickstarters, right? And there's like, here's this horror anthology.
Yeah.
It has 60 different creators, and then they make like $20,000. And I'm like, how?
Yeah.
But
There
then I
must
get
be
to
some
thinking,
star creator
okay,
in there.
they've got they've got either a star creator or they've got 60 creators and all their families backed it. Okay, well, that's just a numbers game.
Yeah, that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
That's just a
Don't
numbers
forget
game.
you gotta split up that 20,000 between 60 people. That doesn't go
right,
very far.
exactly.
Yeah.
That doesn't go very far.
Trust me, I know this.
Barb's been crunching the numbers for a while. So my question is, we're getting towards the last 15 minutes of our topic here before maybe we transition into more silliness. What's on the horizon? How do the indies need to adapt to be successful? And if we want to talk specifically about Silverline, we have been, it's just like any big goal. Silverline is just doing the grind, and in a good way, creating. We can't unless we. I know Rory's on the prowl for rich widows out there to invest and
Rich old widows.
old. Rory's out. He's trying. But
Knocking on doors.
apart from having a zillion dollars, or starting in 1940 whatever. Silverline is doing the grind to have our stable of comics, and we've got a lot of titles, which is awesome.
Yeah, we started out with one, Cat and Mouse. How many do we have now?
Yeah, and they're we've got we have.
I don't give you a count. I'm at the right computer, so I can.
We're at this really weird stage. We're right on the cusp of something really big, but we just need that.
Yes.
So what? We don't have to speak.
Scott and his Speedos. Well, I just said this at the beginning. I mean, nobody listens to my ideas.
Well, hey, listen, Tommy still owes me a pole dance, so I don't think.
Oh, you're right. That was in.
We're looking at a 50 million Kickstarter right there. Scott and his Speedos taught me on the pole dance.
Is that the title of our next comic? Scott in Speedo. Scott in Speedo. It's just page after page of. No sound effects, right, Aaron?
No. which I'm actually adding sound effects in my next comic just to spite Roland.
Okay. So, if
we're counting, I'm sorry. I just counted. If we're counting, and it may not be completely accurate, but if we're counting our remix titles, which I am, 25.
25
Wow.
titles, and that's
25
that's
titles.
25 titles that people can go buy like right now, right? They can. So that's fantastic.
Oh, you talking about actual physical
Well-
comics? No, actually, you know what? I have a cool image to show you.
Oh,
Keep
boy.
talking. I gotta dig this
so,
image up.
Right. So, well, I think, I mean, of course, if you're gonna we have a product to offer, you got to have that product, and that's what Silverline is doing, and that's what all the indies are doing, hopefully. And they, of course, have to get through the noise that everybody wants their Batman and their Superman and their Captain America and their Iron Man. They have to get past that, and then some of them are really doing a great job. What do they need to continue doing? What does Silverline need to continue doing to get that attention? What's the very basics to get in front of people, to get noticed?
Strange enough, I do think, as weird as it is, like graphic novels will help. And I've often wondered if somebody who is an independent comic company would just make graphic novels instead of floppies. I wonder what the difference would that be.
Yeah.
I don't know
that's cool.
if there would be anything to that.
Wow.
So
are you able to embiggen that? Can you zoom?
Well, I can zoom. Of course, you won't be able to.
Yeah,
see
you
the
lose
whole
that. It's like an
image.
infographic. It's really cool. Wow.
So this is not for this Kickstarter because I didn't include the last Kickstarter on this one. I don't know why I just didn't. But so basically, after this Kickstarter ships, these are the back issues. Now, if you can do math, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 29, 30 plus these trades.
That's right. That's tiny. The Mantis. Oh, that's the Mantis in the Kalis trade.
Kalis.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got the tiny trade. I really like the tiny one.
So
thank you,
Rory. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And Roland. When we were in Pittsburgh, there were a couple other indies there. They had tables covered with graphic novels, with hardcover graphic novels. Yeah, and really as a consumer, that enticed me. I really like that. I liked being able to.
It's bookshelf friendly. It looks good. It keeps its shape.
I have looked into hardcovers, and the cool thing is, if we're not in a hurry, we can get them reasonably priced from China, obviously.
Yeah.
But the problem is, you have to buy them in quantity, and so you have to come up with the money up front.
Yeah.
Now, you guys have been hanging around Silverline long enough to know that ain't happening.
Yeah.
Number one, we don't have the cash to do. Number two, we don't have the storage space. Where am I going to put 2,000 hardcovers?
Come on,
there is
buy a bigger house, Roland.
Right. There is one.
I'll just stick them in the slots here. Right?
Sit on them. Get rid of the couch. Get rid of the car. Just sit on them.
I know there's a company
Park the
called.
cars out front. You got a garage, right?
I know there's a company called Lulu, and there's a few other print-on-demand companies that do one-off hardbacks, but they are expensive.
They're pricey.
They're pricey. So it would be one of those, like if you did on a Kickstarter, like the Ultimate Collector's Edition hardback.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they come out nice, but as far as like selling them in the store, no. And I've thought of doing that myself in my own Kickstarter, of doing like one or two, like for a Kickstarter reward, like a hardback, but I'm not sure how well that I thought looked into it. Yeah.
And and it's not an unreasonable thought process, but they if you're going to go print on demand with a hardcover, they are going to be pricey.
Right.
Yes. Like in the $100, over like $100 at least, close to like 70 something to print it. So you're looking at maybe
really
100.
They gotta really want it.
All my soft cover graphic novels are in the bookcase.
Yeah. Oh, we're just talking because people like that premium. I have people who like that premium hardcover. I'm a sucker for hardcovers.
Yeah.
What can I say?
So if somebody wants it in hardcover, they can contact us separately, and we can print it up
even on at the convention. Like I was saying, some of the other guys they had their wares out, and they were every one was $50.
Looks sharp.
Looks really sharp. But they were $50.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was for the hardcover. Just
the hardcover. Yeah,
Okay.
Rory. I mean, what do you got there? Yeah.
Rough Riders.
Rough Riders is a great one, and that's a beautiful book.
With the exception of Rory.
Is that Aftershock?
Did you see any buy any?
Yeah.
Aftershock.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
Aftershock.
Yeah, those are little bigger companies. So
example.
those are companies that can probably front the money up front.
Yeah.
Like Roland said, that we can't do yet.
Right.
Boom
So,
does it with theirs.
Right.
Yeah. We're not there yet. but
Ross
we'll be
said
getting
he'll come talk to us. By the way, you guys.
This was a
Okay.
Kickstarter.
That looks
Ooh,
cool.
That does
Yeah.
look cool.
Yeah,
How
this is
much-
a.
How much was? Do you remember how much you paid for the Kickstarter reward?
This is about $40.
$40.
Yeah.
That's not
Okay.
bad.
40, 50 bucks, yeah. And really,
Yeah.
like,
Beautiful.
honestly, hardcover,
Kickstarter.
you buy a D&D
Yeah.
player's handbook,
Yeah.
it's $50.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the cost of something like that, a glossy page,
Voluminous
hardcover.
information.
And you have to be
Sorry.
careful with some hardbacks because I've actually gotten some hardbacks that disintegrate.
Yeah,
It
they pull-
depends
and
on the binding.
spine-
I've had a few that have paid money and they just
Yep.
the pages fall out.
Yep.
So
So you have to read them like this.
Yeah.
Peek
Well,
into them.
And I'll be honest with you guys. You guys know I'm
Yeah,
the
this is
eternal
soft
optimist.
cover.
So
Yeah.
I honestly believe that we will get to the point where we will be able to say, hey, we're going to order these hardcovers in mass because we're going to sell most of them
Yeah.
immediately. You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can't see us ordering, and I think the minimum, now this has been several years since I've looked, but the minimum order at the time was like 2,000 hardcovers. I don't see us moving 2,000 hardcovers. I don't see us moving 1,000 hardcovers.
No.
Quickly. And so I can't see us spending the money to move 25, 50 hardcovers, right?
And I think
but
Perfect
one
Bound
day,
books,
I think
yeah.
we'll get there.
Right.
Perfect Bound books I still think works. I mean, look at
Oh, yeah.
manga. All of
Well,
Perfect Bound and they're all in
dude.
black and white.
Right.
And they sell
I
tons.
mean-
They don't put a lot of manga in hardcover.
Right. There.
This is a great looking book.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think if anybody's heard me say anything, my out of the time we've been doing this, my probably biggest disappointment is that not more people got this book. You know,
I thought your biggest disappointment was me.
well, that's in people. This is
That's in people.
You know, the thing is, I looked through this, and this is a doggone
Yeah, it's really
good-looking
cool.
Yeah.
book.
It's really cool.
That's
You
I
know,
really like the
it's-
way that turned out.
Me
Yeah.
too. You know, the stories in here are good. What do you got? 16, 17 stories, I think.
Yeah.
Now,
You
are you
know,
thinking something like that? Like doing that as far as like a serialized, like that's because if you could like make like the books look like that, they're like the serialized multiple stories.
Yeah. Well, now that would only be, something that size would only be 4 stories because that's
4
about
stories,
100.
which it's actually maybe
something
enough.
like
If they're serialized, considering the stories are like 15, 20 pages each, like issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's
So-
a possibility.
So what are the other indies? What are the successful indies doing? And I don't want to say we're not. We're just small. We're getting there. And it's a process. What are the aftershocks, the booms, the IDWs, Dark Horse? What are they?
Oh
what are
yeah,
they
I was like, if
doing?
you're going for like the indie, I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of
There's a
certain
lot
subject
of
matters that
very
sell better
small.
than other subject
Right.
matters.
Yeah,
brown
what
fleshy
made
things.
what made the
What-
like Bone and Strangers in Paradise? That was the only thing they did, but they were so
It
popular.
was funny. Bone, I
And they were
remember
regular.
Bone going to conventions
Yeah.
and stuff. And I've met Terry Moore a few times who did Strangers in Paradise, and he went to Marvel and DC and tried to pitch Strangers in Paradise, and they just no, they were not into that. So he just put it out, and I think
You
those
also-
are just
So did Jeff Smith. I met Jeff Smith with the first issue when he was sitting at a card table
Uh-huh.
at Diamond Distributor
yeah,
retailer
super nice man.
conference,
Yeah.
Yeah. trying to sell his first issue of Bone to the
Oh.
retailers.
I think I met him
And-
around issue 6.
I think, strangely enough, those were just kind of maybe a little bit lightning in the bottle. But I also think, nothing against other independents of what I'm about to say, they were also very talented writers
Yeah.
and artists, especially
Yeah.
Jeff Smith. He is just a talented artist. I do think there's a sense of artistic quality in that
Mhm.
maybe you're not seeing in
Well,
other ones.
I think there's that. I think there's a couple other things as well. Is they were consistent, they were steady. I think one of the things that well, I'm not pointing fingers here because if I did, what is it? I got 4 of them pointing right.
Yeah.
3 of them pointing right back at me.
More than one.
Part of the problem with like the way we have been kickstarting is that we haven't been consistent.
Yeah.
You think of the length of time now, and part of this is why we haven't been to Diamond yet, because I knew this is what we were going to do, and we can't go to Diamond and be this inconsistent, right? We got to go and be regular. We got to be like
Roland, if you could just hire us all as staff writers, and we could churn them out every month. We'd be just churning them out for you, man. Okay, so
you know,
I can be consistent.
But Roland's got to quit
Everybody
buying
else
all
has
like
stuff.
the hookers and booze first.
where's
Right.
that
Mark's
money
the only one
going,
retiring,
Roland?
right?
Where's the money going?
So,
I want to see an accounting.
you know, funny enough, BJ talking about this a lot. BJ and I talk about this a lot. I would love nothing more than for Rory to find him a rich widow.
Yeah.
because one of the things that you guys know that I love, the thing that I love about who we are and what we do is this is a group of people who love making comics. And this makes my heart happy. I know there's no money in that, but it makes my heart happy. And that's what causes me to say, man, I really wish we had some money so I could pay Scott. I really, really wish we had money so I could pay Barb.
We can sell stocks.
You notice my name's not in
there. I really wish that I could just pay someone to tell Aaron to take mine.
We could pay somebody just to beat the crap out of Aaron on a semi-regular basis.
I usually take my pay anyway and turn around and pay my artists. More money.
But Bart, so folks that don't know the cost of making a comic book, it's like, well, why don't you just make more? Well, okay, for those of us who can't draw, I have to find somebody that I can afford to make. Oh, it's how many monies per page times 22, 24.
Oh, I think that's funny. There's some of these freelance sites I'll look at. People like, hey, I'm looking for comic book artists and stuff. I'm looking to make a 90-page comic, and I need this turned around in a month and a half. Like, right.
Yeah.
Well, as my dad used to say, want in one hand, get in the other.
Right. Yeah. And what is the three? It's fast. What is it? Quality or cheap? I don't remember. It's you can pick two of them, right?
Fast, good or cheap.
Cheap. Yep.
You pick two of those.
Yep. And you can't. So and in the art world too, especially because you can't just churn them out. Which actually we could if we could cheaply churn them out. We'd have pretty crappy comics, and we don't want that. So we don't have a staff of writers in a bullpen making comics, and so you're hiring this guy that lives over there and this guy that lives over there, and they're doing 78 other comic books as well, drawing, and so you're trying to make a comic book and to make it consistent because that's the indie world. Unless I don't know. I mean, how many of the indies have a bullpen and a headquarters where they got people sitting down and picking up their comic and walking down the hall? No, it's sending high-res PDFs back and forth from New York to Oregon to Minnesota to London.
I've often thought there's a few
my artist Alex in Mexico.
Yeah.
There's a few ideas I thought about making independent strong. One, and I have no idea if this idea worked, but I've seen it kind of done when the guy did Lady Death. He did a sort of horror universe. He had Lady Death and Evil Ernie, and there was like some other people, and he made this sort of superhero type connected universe, but in the horror genre. And I've often thought, well, what if you did the same thing with like a fantasy world? Where like you have like maybe like 3 or 4 titles of different characters in a fantasy world or horror or science fiction. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like that way you're focusing it on a specific genre, but you're also getting that connected universe. I have no idea if that'll work. I know some of the successful independent comics by just like guys in their house making it have been comics that have gone towards specific genres. There's a guy named, I can't remember the gentleman's name. He did a comic called Harlan Buck Free Sword. And each comic was its own sort of like individual little story of this guy in this fantasy world who was like the sword for hire. And the story is kind of loosely connected, but you can kind of read them out of order and stuff. He got really popular. And then eventually work got in the way and he couldn't do it. But he connected himself to that sort of D&D fan base. And that's what and so he's like, okay, this is the kind of focus. So if you like D&D role-playing games, you're going to like this. And I'm like, okay, that's an interesting idea. I've seen some horror comics do that too. You like horror movies? You like this. So there is I'm not saying that's going to like a huge upswing, but sometimes you can get more people to take notice that there's a comic aimed at sort of their general interest. The thing about superheroes is a comic medium, and so there's a ton of stuff. So I've seen people try to tie their comic to another genre that may not be comic book focused, and some would be successful.
So, I don't think Silverline can necessarily do it unless we somehow have some breakout success. How do we change? What has to happen with the culture to bring it back? Is that going to happen, or will it always be a kind of a fringe thing? Because even the big guys, the movies happened, of course, but that did not affect comic book sales.
Well,
so they just keep.
It didn't affect sales, but the more comics adaptations are made into TV shows and movies, it doesn't matter if it's DC or Marvel or an independent. You know, the more of those that happen, it brings more people into the comic book fold, and they realize that comics,
I guess,
you know, like they're like The Mask, Time Cop, Hellboy, Alien versus
Strangely
Predator,
enough,
Sin City.
The problem with that is majority of people I talk to when they see those movies have no idea they're adapted from comics.
So, but in the
only Marvel and DC have a general consensus
in the grand scheme of it, does it matter that much? I mean, I don't know, because you got like, it's not my comic, it's not a comic book, but they're still getting your story. So if Steam Patriots was made into a long format Netflix 10 seasons of a series, I would be infinitely happy, right? I mean, I'm not going to say, no. It must be on paper. They must.
Of course,
they must turn.
Somebody walks past your booth at a convention and be like, "Oh,
yeah,
I didn't know that was a book."
Yeah. So
I'm prepping for the Broadway musical, so that's in the back burner.
Rory, you can make the Broadway. I'll take Netflix. We'll split the. You
blow
take
Hamilton
the
out of the water.
So, if someone is consuming your story, unless it's completely changed, and I know, like you think like World War Z, that was a book turned into a horrible movie. I would be really happy. Someone is consuming my story. My story is out there. So in the comic book world, the stories are out there. People are consuming those characters, those worlds. Is that going to be the way it goes? That people are the diehards, the fringe is reading the comic, and then mainstream has to be a movie.
Let me just say this. As one who has had their properties optioned by Hollywood before, I don't know that you would be happy.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of instances you lose control. You lose creative control.
Yeah.
Now, you might be happy that they wrote you a check, right? And we can certainly, I was very happy when I got a check, right? But when I read this, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is not my story. This is not my story."
Who wrote World War Z?
Take your original, retitle it, put it somewhere else. If it's so different,
someone
take your original story, retitle it, sell it somewhere else. Because if it's that different,
well, that was on Cat and Mouse. Cat and Mouse had already been published at that time.
I mean, it was. I already had a comic book.
Here's something interesting, and it's not going to change the world or anything, but one of the show managers that I do shows with, QuadCon, I do quite a bit of their shows, and they're doing more and more shows in the mall.
Yeah,
where they do it, they just spread out in the hallways of the mall.
They don't do that here, which I wish they would, because that seems like such a great idea.
It is a great idea, because I did fantastic sales in the mall, and everybody there's several vendors now that say, "I'll never do anything but mall shows going forward," because the general public is walking through.
Like, that's a good point, because we if the cons, you're just
fantastic.
Other than like, and I love going to conventions, because also seeing, like, you see that mom or that dad who's just like,
what?
But you got to give them props. Good job, mom, dad. Thank you for taking your child that's in cosplay to run around. But other than the people that just tag along, someone's not wandering. Oh, let me spend $8 to walk into this convention center.
That's why you gotta have like the free little nudie books to throw to the dad. Here, dad. Thanks, buddy.
About half the sales I did at these mall shows were just people there shopping, and then they stopped by the table, and
that's a good something they need to get in front of other people, so it's not this circular economy.
And this is how comics used to sell, right? When we were on the newsstand, we had Right. We had the spinner racks, and you could go to 7-Elevens, you could go to Stop and Rob's, you could go to Kroger's, you could go to book stands, right? Bookstores. They were available everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Now
That was one of my jobs at Rexall drugstore was taking care of the spinner rack.
Well, now if you want to buy a comic, you have to get in your car and go to a comic shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or a convention. But if you're wanting to buy comics, you have to purposely go to a comic shop and seek them out. You don't just happen upon them at the grocery store and go, "Oh yeah, look, let me add a copy of Little Lulu or
comic books at the price point are perfect for impulse buys, and you defeat the purpose of impulse buys. Somebody has to deliberately go to a store.
Right.
There's no work for them to
impulsively drive to the comic book store.
Right.
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Do an impulse buy. No, there's impulse buys in oh, that looks like a cool title from the comics or in the comics.
Yeah.
But Roland's absolutely right. When you're in a newsstand, I mean, how do you think people like those Sun periodicals in the Inquirer, like how do they still exist? Because they're impulse buys.
Yeah.
That's it.
So
I mean, they said
Walmart,
companies have said and stores have said they make more money at the stuff by the cash register than most places in the store.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's just
Roland, you get it right on that. You start talking to Walmart.
Yeah.
Do you know how many copies they had to print to do that? Oh my gosh.
Oh, that one company?
I know a little bit about it because when I first started at Malibu, we were on the newsstand and we were printing 100,000 copies and sending those things out. And we would get, are you ready for this? We would get about 75 to 80,000 of those returned.
I thought so. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
But here's the deal. You print 100,000, you get them per unit so cheap. You made money selling 20,000 copies.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it.
Get Tommy on it. Tommy.
I'd be curious to know how that one company who went to Walmart did.
Allegiance.
Allegiance.
Yeah, I don't.
Because I've gone in there and looked at that, but it's a unique stand. It's usually never really organized that well. I think not because of lack of them trying. It's because when they send it to the store, it's up to the employees, and they don't really care.
Yeah.
They don't really upkeep it. So eventually, when people flip through it and what is this, they kind of disorganize it. So eventually, it just kind of looks like a mess of random books.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe a little bit of people push back. I don't know how it's due. I know when I go there, there's a lot of back issues. I mean, I have like issue 4, and there's like 2, 3, 4, and there's tons of them. So I don't know how they're
seen
selling.
them at my Walmarts.
I miss the spinner racks.
I know that they're there, but I haven't. So I wanted to say something about the independents. So you talked about some of the other independents earlier. Now I want to tell you something that you might not have. The light bulb might not have gone off in you. But if you look at you're talking about people like Dark Horse, people like Boom. And I'm even going to say Malibu Comics. What helped get them on the map? Licensed properties.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
They licensed properties. Now, not necessarily. Now, Dark Horse got big ones, but
Dark Horse got lucky.
Big ones. They just got. They got licensed properties that people already knew, and they said, "Hey, we're going to go make a." Malibu did. They had an agreement with Full Moon Entertainment. They did comic books on Doll Man, the movie Doll Man, Tracers and all kinds of those kind of cult
Innovation was huge with the license.
Innovation was another one. Yeah,
I did so much licensed work. Freddy's Dead, Child's Play, Lost in Space. I was like the queen of the license.
Didn't Topps do Star Trek? Wasn't Topps comic? Didn't they do like Star Trek or something for a while?
I don't remember that. They
maybe
Rob would know.
The only Star Trek books I had Rob on them. So
okay, yeah. Who were those published by? Was that Marvel?
No.
DC. DC did Star Trek.
Was it DC? Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
I did an issue.
Yeah. So I that's certainly something to talk about, think about.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
certainly
even look
something
at
we have.
Right. Well, even look at old Marvel.
What can we afford?
Old Marvel had Conan and Star Wars and a lot of licensed books that
G.I. Joe
helped them.
G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe.
Brent, tell us everything the independent comic book industry needs. Go.
The owner needs to go out and stage a kidnapping and then rescue the person, and their father needs to be wealthy.
Yes. All right. We got to find a billionaire's daughter to kidnap. We're we're not,
I
this
have
is not
tagged Elon Musk in Twitter posts before.
She's like, look at us.
You just laid
Well,
out
I mean,
a lot of her. You
Elon, could you drop some cash over here,
just,
please?
whoop, just drop
Yeah,
some off.
just
He
accidentally.
hasn't pitched, though.
Oh, look, it fell out of my wallet. I'll take that. Thank you.
strange enough, and I do think he's right about the licenses. The thing that's unfortunate is it's very hard, but I do think we need to create more of those big licenses, like those big properties. The only one that I've in recent years that has been that big as like Star Wars or whatever, Harry Potter, but those were books.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of I'm honestly trying to think of other ones that have come from comics. And I mean, the boys and stuff are like properties, but not like huge mega. And I do think independents can make those properties. It's just for some odd reason, fans love nostalgia. They love connected to one property, and it's hard to drag them. Like, no, spend money on Star Wars and Harry Potter, spend it on my stuff, and that is a hard sell.
Yeah.
That's a real hard
My
sell.
Little Pony. I'm sure we could get that.
Yeah, we could do My Little
Wait,
Pony.
they did My Little Pony, did they?
Aaron
Somebody
Aaron
had
could
the
draw
license
My
for
Little
that.
Pony.
I think IDW did. I think.
Strange. I remember watching that new My Little Pony cartoon. I watched it one time. It was on. I was like, and I actually was cracking up at it. That thing was just like, it was making fun of itself. I'm like, okay, this is kind of funny.
Another reason to fire Aaron.
Yeah, I know. My Little Pony.
He's a brony.
Brony, that's what they call them.
What's the word title? That's got to be the cheapest, and we can just revamp that.
But yeah,
He's got a tail
it's
in his
funny.
closet.
I remember a comic company doing Puppet Master. I think was a horror movie.
That
They
was
did that.
Malibu.
Was that
Malibu
Malibu?
did that.
Okay,
Mhm.
and then coming on, and so I have to send you a link. I saw a commercial, a Malibu commercial on YouTube. Somebody Facebook posted from YouTube about like the Prime guy.
Was it about the Ultraverse?
Yeah, like there was a
Yeah.
kid, and then he got up and ran. There was a huge line at the comic shop.
Yep.
I was like, I didn't know Malibu had commercials like that.
Man, yeah, first comic book company to ever do that.
Really?
Yep.
No,
and
I was-
and I wasn't in those commercials because I was having a baby. Well,
First man to have a baby.
That was the first in history.
Listen, I was way ahead of my time.
Yeah.
Apparently, women don't need them. I can do this on my own.
Hank Knopf is in one of the commercials.
Which one?
Hank Knopf is in one of them.
Really?
You remember where the guy skateboards over the car?
Oh yeah.
Remember that? That's Hank's car, and that's Hank. They asked because they were cheap, right? So they were like, "Hank, can we use your car?" And Hank said, "Not if I'm not in it, you can't." So-
Yeah, like if I'm gonna wreck, it's gonna be my car.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't have Curtis in there.
Was Aircell a part of Malibu when they did
Aircell.
Men in Black?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they were a part of Malibu.
Yes.
So
Aircell
there-
was. Yeah.
So Malibu was. I mean, Men in Black was a success.
Yeah. But again,
Yeah,
nobody
so-
knows it's a
so-
comic. That's the hardest
so
thing.
Men in Black was a comic first.
Right.
Yeah. So Lowell is a friend of mine. Lowell, because the story is Men in Black and Cat and Mouse were on the market at the same time, right? And they had both been optioned about the same time. And so Lowell and I used to talk. Hey, what's going on with Men in Black? Hey, what's going on with Cat and Mouse? Hey, what's going on with Men in Black? And for the longest of the time, it was nothing. And next thing I know, Lowell says, "Hey, this young actor named Will Smith is interested in the script." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding! Are you talking about the Fresh Prince dude?" He goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, "That'll never go anywhere."
Does he still have the rights?
No, he does not.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
You know, our listeners are actually listening into a live think tank.
Yeah.
Ooh, what about like the Rifleman? Who owns that? Because that was a radio show and a TV show, right? Could we adapt that?
Enough people that know it.
Those are
from the
short
50s.
serials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest.
And most of
with
the time, too,
They
if you
did
get your
Bonanza as a
comic
comic.
option and they write a script, a lot of times
Gunsmoke.
those scripts will sit on shelves.
Yeah.
Just because you get
Yeah.
an option and get a paycheck doesn't mean it's going to be a movie in
No.
not even
Right.
maybe in your
you. A lot
lifetime.
of people think that if you get an option, that guarantees the movie. An option is really just them saying, "Hey, we think this idea is cool. We're going to give you some money so no one else can give you money.
Right.
Basically, yeah, so no one else can use it.
And then we're going to take it and then we're going to mess it all up. And then we're going to see if we can get anyone interested in making a film about it."
Almost like the trademark industry where people buy up trademarks just to keep the trademark.
You know?
Tech industry do that all the time. Like this,
Trademark
I mean,
collectors.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, they'll just sit there. That way, no one else can use the technology.
And then there's books that are indies that are so popular that they refuse to die. I mean, look at The Crow. Okay,
Yeah,
The Crow started out at Caliber, and then
Yeah.
it went to Tundra, and then Kitchen Sink. Where did it go after Kitchen Sink?
like
It went to
Ninja.
London Night. It went to
Yeah.
London Night after Kitchen Sink.
And then
Image?
he just keeps reprinting it, right?
And after
Pocketbooks.
after
So what-
Firefly and Serenity,
So does
Gallery
it
Books,
just
and now it's at IDW.
does
So,
it
I mean,
I
just
didn't know
don't-
that.
all
Yeah.
boil down to just writing a really good story? And I love to say that because sometimes the successes out there aren't really good stories. So
Yeah.
I know it's a bit of luck, it's a bit of who
Yep.
discovers it, but
There's
but
also
It
stuff
went
like
to 8 different publishers.
It's
Yeah.
also a bit of when you're talking about selling options, right? You're talking about not the comic book itself. When you're talking about
Mhm.
selling option, it takes somebody to look at it, right, and say, I think this has potential outside of being a comic book, right?
yeah,
If you read for instance, if you read the Men in Black comic, it's nothing like the TV show. I mean, the movie. It's nothing. Mm-mm. It was just a concept of like, hey, we really like this concept. It's pretty cool. We're going to buy it from you, give you some money, and then we're going to change it up because the concept is cool, right? But we need to make it work for film. So
I looked up. I'm sorry, I had to look up. Max Brooks wrote World War Z, and I remember him, someone quoting him as saying, "There are 3 things that are the same with the movie as the book: the words world, war, and Z."
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, what did they tell you? Like Hollywood will break your heart, isn't that kind of the old saying?
Well, and at some point you do have to decide,
Yeah.
Are you going to, if you're a creator, are you going to be willing to let go of your baby for that money? So when you're talking options, do you want control or do you want the money?
Yeah,
That's not an easy decision.
No.
We had Kevin Van Hook on here a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about Bloodshot, and it was pretty much the same thing. There were a few things that were kept, but yeah, it wasn't his Bloodshot.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes, I mean, that paycheck.
Well, and that's it. That's you know, when you, and this is the siren's call for comic creators, right?
Yeah.
Because even you know, well, I'm not talking about the astronomical, you know, X-Men #1 kind of sales, but even comics that sell well still don't really make a whole lot of money. Right? They don't. They're not going to put you in a mansion. You can afford to live, right? But they're not going to put you in a mansion. So when Hollywood comes around, it's kind of like, ooh, I can actually get some real money now, right?
Right.
And so it's that call, and it's you know, for comic book creators who don't make that much money, that's hard to resist.
It's hard to pass up.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know any creator who's ever said no.
Yeah. It's the same with books. People think like most book authors, you know, kids' books. I mean, people are like, well, that's why I always think it's funny. Every time I see like a movie, I was watching a TV series recently with a guy's like in the movie. It's like, oh, he's a first time, you know, publisher. I just had his book published and he's selling tons of books or whatever. I'm like that. And all the movies, everyone who's an author is like living the high life. I'm like, yeah, right. That's like winning the lottery.
So I mean,
not everyone's
you got your Stephen Kings, your J.K. Rowling's,
they're the exception, not the,
I mean, you can count on your hand authors.
Well, and then so I love Michael Crichton books. Jurassic Park, but even Jurassic Park's not like the book, pretty close. But Congo, oh, that was an awful movie. One of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. One of my favorite books. Loved Congo. And so,
strange enough, I think it's how attached you are to the property. I mean, if you wrote a story and you don't like, you're Michael Crichton, you wrote like say Congo story, and like I don't really care, I just wrote it for fun. Somebody offers you a check, why not? Do what you want with it. I don't care.
And it's going to be an income forever. And
I've told this story before, but I also did the graphic novel of Lawnmower Man, Stephen King's Lawnmower Man. And he hated the movie adaptation because it wasn't anything like his book. And before we could put out the graphic novel, he killed it. He got his lawyers come in and he killed it because he wasn't he hated the movie. He wasn't going to see it as a graphic novel.
Wow.
I guess if you're Stephen
Okay.
King, you can do that,
Yeah.
and you can
So-
say, you know what,
So you had the artwork.
I don't
finished?
need it.
The whole 60-page
Oh.
thing was finished, colored, ready to go to press.
in that.
Ooh.
I inked
okay.
over Stewart and Monin.
Do you have a copy of that, Barb, somewhere? Because
I
that would
was
be
just
worth
going to ask that. Yeah.
if it
I
never went
remember
to
He
print.
does.
it's
Auction
sort
house.
of like that
I have
idea.
a few Xerox copies of the artwork, and that's it.
Barb, I love that you
original
say Xerox. I love that you
Yeah.
say Xerox.
I remember Tom Hanks when he did Road
You
to
go to
Perdition.
Kinko's for that?
They asked him what he thought of the comic. He read it, and he's like, "I don't read comic books. I don't read that stuff."
Yeah.
So I mean, again, there's that stigma. It's
So
weird, but, I mean,
when I talk to Tom Hanks, I don't go to movies. I don't waste my time.
yeah, I don't waste money.
Yeah.
I know, same thing. It's I don't know where that stigma like I don't get it. It's a form of communication. I don't get stigmas and forms of communication. I wander around the kids book section.
Yeah.
You know,
There's-
I maybe want it on the FBI's list.
yeah,
But I like kids books. I like the art in
Yeah,
it and stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, I'll look at it. But people like
and
read
you know,
kids books. I'm like,
From
yeah,
a
that's-
storytelling standpoint, sorry not to
Yeah.
diverge too far, from as the writer, reading kids' books, they have to distill good storytelling down to the simplest
Yeah.
form, and I
Oh,
love
yeah.
it.
That's
I love it.
awesome.
If you want to get a story across, read a kid's book. Sometimes they're really
Yeah.
stupid, but sometimes they're really great. And you
Yeah,
have
they don't make sense page to page.
right, yeah, but
Yeah.
they can get a story across because it's for kids. So yeah, I think if we keep churning out, which we're doing, what Silverline is doing, churning out good stories, good and across the spectrum to entertain and be great entertaining stories. It's what we need to do, and that's what the indies need to do. Unless something outrageous happens, we're always going to have the big guys as that.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be in the way.
Yeah.
But if we can get more and more people, and I like Barb's idea of being in a mall, being in front of the customers that maybe aren't going to see us, and that's kind of what Rory and I had hoped would happen with Steam Patriots, is we would get the steampunk people, but we'd also get the history people, that aren't necessarily going to pick up a comic book. And maybe that'll happen. I don't know. We have yet to have a rich historian. I know rich historian is almost
Synonymous.
redundant.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's kind of like rich comic creators.
Right? Yeah, they're out there. They'll pick up our book.
So
But,
what you need are people with social media reaches.
Yeah,
Mm.
you got to get that one. You got to get
If
that Neil Gaiman.
anybody in our
Hey, Neil.
audience is
Hey.
a big
Elon.
social media influencer
At
who has
Elon.
lots of followers, contact us.
If you
That's
say
right.
at,
There
that
might
tags
even be
them, right?
free
If you say
comic books
at,
at
then their
that
name.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I remember I had a friend. He sold like a decent amount of his books because he did art for a rapper who was a locally kind of well-known rapper. I don't know how, but he had like 1,000 following, and he gained all his followers and was able to sell a decent amount of books because he did art for like this rapper. And apparently the followers over the years have fallen off because he hasn't done anything else with the gentleman. But that was it. I mean, he did some artwork for a rapper. Now he's got fans. Like, and that's a weird set connection. That's like you doing something for like, Julia Childs, and all of a sudden, like, we got a bunch of comic fans. Like, it just, it's what? But it sometimes happens.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we're in the last few minutes of our show here, and we were going to talk, if we want to talk about what's on our summer reading list or summer watching list. I am personally reading. I got sucked into a book series that started in 2008 called the Destroyer Men series. Roland, I told you about them while we were in Pittsburgh. Great series of novels, Destroyer Men, really cool. World War II, get sucked into a parallel universe. And I just went on a little vacation last week and managed to read almost an entire paperback. Almost 390 pages in 1 week, which was I haven't done that in.
And this is a huge deal because Scott just learned to read.
I've just learned.
Just graduated from
Not
top
a
up.
picture.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm a movie
The-
geek, like I go every week. We saw Lightyear. That was a lot of fun.
Was Lightyear good? Okay. I know.
and this week we're going to go see 4 next Tuesday.
What's 4?
4.
Four.
Oh.
I thought you said
Like you have a listening list.
4.
I know it was like 7. I don't know, 12 monkeys. I don't know, 4.
13, 14.
I want the Minions thing to die. I want it to go away forever. Stop with the Minions. But I had friends who went and saw it at the drive-in, and they loved it. And
I'll wait
Fun
for
fact
people on
about-
Let me
Disney
see here.
Plus.
Scott
Fun
Wakefield
fact about
Christmas
Minions.
list, Minions movie series. Got it.
thank you, Aaron. Thank you.
Fun fact about Minions. I know the guy who created Minions.
Oh,
really?
okay.
I-
Roland,
I-
wait. I
But
think
does
Now,
he know
Scott, that's a
you?
direct link. No,
I know.
directly had to get rid of this.
Roland's gonna be like, Scott's your biggest fan. I think in the grand scheme of things, they're hilarious or wonderful, but I don't know. The movie's just kind of enough with this minion thing.
Yeah.
But Roland, I think you saying the phrase "I know the guy who" is like, okay, big surprise. Roland knows everybody. Roland,
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
work
you have
with-
to be cautious when you start talking about serial killers, and Roland's like, I know the
I
guy.
know the guy.
That's where you want to get concerned.
You know,
Yeah.
I knew that guy before he.
Yeah.
We all
Before
know
he
you,
did it.
Aaron.
Yeah.
That's true.
Anybody else? I don't know what's. I honestly, and I know this.
I'm
is
looking
like,
forward to the Prey movie, but it's only on Hulu. So that's the
I-
Predator sequel.
BJ and I.
I'm watching Dark Winds right now, and it's fantastic.
What's that on?
It's on
and about?
AMC. It's on AMC, and
Okay.
it's very Native American.
Okay.
that sounds
Zahn McClellan is the lead. Oh, he's awesome. I highly recommend. It's Native American noir,
No. Oh,
Interesting.
what era is it set in? Era.
1970s.
Era.
70s.
Era.
Oh, 1970s, cool.
Hey,
So,
era.
AIM has to be a big part of it then, right?
Yeah.
It's just been renewed for season 2, and it's the critics love it. The populace loves
What's it called?
It's
Dark
Dark
Winds.
Winds.
I've never heard of
Dark
it.
Winds. I have to look that up.
Yeah,
BJ
I haven't.
and I binged on the 4th. We binged Terminal.
No, that's so
Pratt.
good.
God, that
Yeah,
was so
Terminal
good.
List.
Chris-
Terminal
List,
List?
yeah,
Pratt.
Terminal List.
Yeah, we
Chris-
just started that.
Rat.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
No,
we
after that first episode, you're hooked.
I
Is
didn't
it?
know
Okay.
what it was. Right?
Dean said I gotta watch it. It's on my list.
Yeah.
I haven't turned the TV on in a long time. It's
Well,
been like summertime here.
We were,
And-
the 4th being on a
Yeah,
Monday
all
was
month
really
of it.
weird for us.
We also
you know?
just started watching The Old Man on FX.
How's
how
that?
is it?
The old with an
Good.
E.
Pretty good. Jeff Bridges, right?
We did
Jeff
watch
Bridges.
the Outer Range. That was kind of cool.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I liked Outer Range.
Yeah.
We were watching one about the Mormon killings, or something of heaven, the Banner of Heaven, something.
Oh yeah, with Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. We started watching like 2 episodes, and then I'm like, oh, this is good. And then I completely forget and lose track. I've been rewatching Cheers again. I like Cheers.
Oh, I love
yeah.
Cheers.
Classic.
Yeah.
You know, so I've been watching that. And then I listen to a lot of dramas because I can listen to my work. So I've been watching some stupid. It's a really weird one called The Affair. Apparently, it was 7 seasons, so I have no idea what this is about. But I'm like, that must have hell of an affair for 7 seasons. So I'm like, what, you know.
Ooh, tell
But
me
there's
more.
like it started out okay. I'm like, okay, whatever. I can listen to it. It's a drama. They're just talking. But now there's like a murder mystery. I'm like, okay, maybe this might go somewhere.
Yeah.
But
And
other than that, I guess I need to watch Stranger Things. I watched the first season
I've heard
years
season
ago.
four. Season 3 was one of the worst things ever made.
3 was
That's
bad.
what
Sorry.
people
Four-
said. So
four
I just
was
kind
good.
of wrote it
Picture
off.
it. Yeah.
I never saw
But-
it.
We're about ready to start season 3 of The Umbrella Academy.
You know, it's funny.
Haven't
I read
watched
the
it.
original comic when it came out,
That was a
and
comic?
I the only reason I knew about the comic was the guy who wrote that comic was a lead singer of My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
No kidding.
Yeah.
and so he wrote the comic, and he's actually a really good artist too. And I don't think he did any art for the comic itself. He might have done a few pictures, but the show, the comic itself was kind of like it was okay. So when they made this show, I'm like, oh yeah, it was okay. I don't know, it didn't really grab me, so I didn't really watch the. I watched like a little bit of the show here and there. I've been rewatching Robotech too, but I'm a old Robotech fan.
That's good
Mhm.
stuff.
So yeah.
I don't want to keep cutting us off, but the clock is ticking. And Roland,
Yes.
we got a big announcement, right?
We
And
do.
it's July. Is it July? It's less than
It
it's
is.
July. We had our 4th of July. We had our Independence Day. We're talking about independent comics, and we are Silverline as an independent comic. We're creating a genre-spanning titles. And what's tonight? Something happening tonight?
Something is happening tonight.
Barb, do you know? Rory? Brent, what?
I've heard books of
Independence
whispers.
Day.
Independence Day. Right?
Independence.
Dance. Right? I've got a window open here, and there's a little green button there
Yeah.
that says
Yeah.
"I'm ready to launch."
Oh, are you working for NASA? Are you
Right? Well, you know, I'm
You're in
not but about
Florida.
40 miles. Yeah.
Fire missile.
Ready to launch. Are you mission control right there?
I'm just thinking, ready to launch. Everybody watch the news. You find out what the big news is.
Yeah.
Small third world country explodes.
Roland's like, yeah, my plan's
I
coming to
got the
fruition.
button.
If you know anybody in Uruguay, you'd better say goodbye.
Yeah.
Move now. Right. No, you
So
guys know me too well. Mine would be like, I never did like those New Yorkers.
I know.
North of Mason-Dixon.
North. He's drawn a
whole
line.
country.
Destroy.
The last thing we heard was the
That
South
was
would
just a
rise
great
again,
lake.
and then the whole North exploded.
You know, funny thing, Aaron. I actually.
You're gonna pull those pistols or whistle Dixie.
No,
That's a
I-
hard thing to say. That's
I
my Clint
actually wrote a
Eastwood.
story that had that happen in it.
Really?
I did. I really did. It was published, and Martin Mertonen is actually going to color it. And I don't know what I'll do with it, but at some point in time, I can't find it right now. But it was just a little 8-page story for an anthology that was in a black and white books way back in the
Of
the
nuking Yankees?
late
Is that what it's
80s.
about?
Nuking Yankees.
Nuking
They're called
Yankees.
the
Oh, that
Yankee
is-
nuker.
That's a southern punk rock band.
Yeah.
And across the ocean, all of England was like, yay!
So
I like that title. I like that.
Nuking Yankees.
Right
We
there.
actually-
Nuking Yankees.
It is
Scott,
9:29 on the East Coast right now, and we have not actually said what the crap we're talking about.
So there is a video.
We have. Oh, go for it. Can you launch it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yep.
folks, go.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Here's the video.
Hi, and welcome to our Kickstarter. I am Roland Mann, and I run Silverline Comics, and this is our 19th Kickstarter. Yes, 19! We have successfully funded and fulfilled 17. Why not 18, you ask? Because we're still in the middle of shipping those books. So it'll make it. We're just now in July. So it's going to be on time. But I'm here to tell you about the next one. This time we've got 3 comics in one Kickstarter. But I'm going to shut up yakking, and I'm going to let me tell you about Trumps. Take it away, Roland. Hi. Let me tell you about Trumps. Trumps is a superhero sci-fi story set on the deck. Yes, it's about playing cards. There are 4 kingdoms at war. You might guess. Hearts, spades, diamonds, and clubs. Yes, they're at war. The one who wins, the one who has the most power, can declare themselves Trumps. We don't know who that's going to be. You don't know who that's going to be yet because you got to back the Kickstarter to find out who's going to win. Which kingdom will be declared Trumps? This is number 3 in a 4-issue miniseries, and I'm happy to tell you 4 is so close to being done. We'll be kickstarting it very soon.
Hi, this is John Crowther. I am the writer and co-creator, along with artist Del Barris, of the Teen Beetle series, and I am excited to announce that we are coming back to Kickstarter with Silverline. And once again, we are seeing Teen Beetle in his battle with Dr. Mantis, as Dr. Mantis is trying his hardest to seize the formula for vitamin 2X. And as you know, that is how Teen Beetle gets his powers. So join us. I invite you to join us. Pick up this second exciting issue and get ready for the third one.
Switchblade is the story of Scott Nathans. Set in New Orleans, Scott is just a small-time boxer hanging out trying to make day-to-day. But he gets fed up with the justice system when a couple of killers are let loose by the justice system because the policeman forgot to read them their Miranda rights. And everyone knows that they killed this little girl and did nasty, despicable things to him. So Scott decides to take justice into his own hands, and he becomes a Switchblade. It's a 3-issue miniseries, and it's set in the world of cat and mouse, so hope you come along.
Don't those sound exciting? Yes, the answer is yes. The answer is yes, they do sound exciting. And you want them. You know you do. You know you want to pledge. You know you want to push that little button that says pledge. So that's what we need you to do. We need you to go pick out a tier, probably the extravaganza that has all 3 of them so that you can get all 3 books. Pick out that tier, pledge, and then tell all of your friends. But look, I know this is tough times. If you can't pledge, do us a favor, share it. Share it with people and say, hey, these are cool people. They make comic books. They ship comic books. You're going to like them. Go support them. Thank you. And remember to make mine Silverline.
Roland.
What the heck was that?
Roland, if any of my ideas are made into a movie, you're going to be in it somehow. I don't know. We got to have a Silverline series of movies with Roland as something like the Alfred Hitchcock walk on every time. The cameo. That is incredible. So, did you launch the? Did you launch the?
No,
missiles?
I'm waiting. No, you're the guy who gives me the go.
I am going to say
countdown.
You can't give him that much power.
You have the codes plugged in, right? Your fingers poised over the big red button. You've
both
gotten
have
the
your
call
keys.
from on top. You are that's it, ready to go. And we are going to launch our 19th Kickstarter right now. And everybody out there watching, you're present for it. Go there because traction begets traction, right? And to tell your friends. Share it far and wide. Tell everybody, and because the more successful this is, that's the whole point of Kickstarter. Half the point, 1/3, 3/8 of the 7/10 of the point of Kickstarter is to get all the exclusive stuff, right? And the better we do, we'll get more stuff. You'll get more cool stuff that no one else will get anywhere in the world on this Kickstarter campaign. So go pledge right now and support because you're just pre-ordering a book. SilverlineComics.com. If you go there, go for it. Yeah, press the button.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Hit the button, Roland.
The
button
has been pushed.
All right.
I'm waiting on confirmation.
And
I'm watching the page.
Now it's live.
Kickstarter is live, folks. Everybody, go grab your newest installments of the Silverline titles. We're running a little long here because this is awesome stuff. Also, SilverlineComics.com. If you haven't been there, it's going to give you a pop-up. Get the newsletter. We send out updates on such stuff like this. We send out craft updates. We send out news about what's going on in the Silverline world. We are growing. Every one of our titles has been fulfilled. All of you who backed the last set, those are coming. Those are on the way. And keep enjoying those titles. Keep sharing, folks. That's what we need. That's what makes the indies. It's a word of mouth. We're a Silverline family. We would hug you if we met you, which we have. I'm sure Roland's giving out hugs at all the conventions. Free hugs from Roland. So go over to Kickstarter.com or check your inbox because you probably are getting an update, right? Does it send out an update? If you said notify me.
Yes.
So the links are going to be on Facebook, going to be on Instagram. Instagram is so annoying about links. You got to put it in the bio and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, get on Facebook, check your inbox. If you get those notifications, we have three titles that continue our stories. We got Trump's number 3, Teen Beetle number 2, Switchblade number 2. If you grab those first ones, and we are going to have it available. Yes, Roland. If you want to order back issues, that's always an option.
Yes,
always
absolutely.
an option in our Kickstarter campaigns. You can grab any back issue.
They can grab Steam Patriots number 1.
Steam Patriots number 1.
Yep.
Divinity number 1 and 2. Yep. Yeah. Any of the Kalis titles. Brent, I know you jump on late, but we got to wrap up. We love you, Brent.
We have 3 backers.
All right. In a span of just a couple minutes. That's fantastic.
Thank you, 3 backers.
Yes, spread the word. Spread it on social media. Tell your friends, really, because you back that, and then we keep hitting these stretch goals. You'll get more little goodies. It's really cool. Really cool goodies that no one else is going to get later on. Exclusive stuff, and you help us keep creating these awesome titles. And unless Roland's got anything else to say, we got to wrap up here. We're about 8 minutes over, and this has been a great talk on the industry of the independent comic world. We need you. That's the world that we need the people we need to make Silverline and the indie world successful. And we all want to keep creating unique titles that aren't the same old stuff. Silverline is here because of you. So thank you, folks out there. If you're watching this live, thank you so much. If you're watching this later, thank you so much. Hey, and in 2 months' time, if you're anywhere near Florida, like in North America, Or even, you know what, we have
Central.
international artists joining us. September 10th, rolling 10th and 11th, or 11th and 12th.
10th and 11th. Yep.
September 10th and 11th at Daytona Beach Comic Convention. Go over there, make sure you like their page, follow all the stuff, the social media stuff, so you get their updates. You can see our ugly mugs on their feed. We got a big group of Silverliners coming to Florida, which is really cool.
This would be awesome.
Really
Every
exciting.
year it gets bigger.
I can't wait. We got folks from the other coast, and we got folks from other countries that I've never met. It's going to be great. Can't wait to see Brent again. Share a taco, right? We
Absolutely.
we shared a table and had some delicious food. I can't wait to come to Florida in September.
There will be Del Taco.
Yeah. Yep.
Ooh.
Can't wait.
Still yet to have it.
Thank you, folks out there, and thank you for joining us. As always, we're going to wrap up. Make mine. Silverline. Go to Kickstarter. We love you all. Goodbye.
Hi, my name is Sergio Cariello, and make mine Silverline.